Cool. Oh, I see a few more people trickling in. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. I am Austin, and welcome new contributors. Ideally, that's what we get you to be by the end of this workshop here. So, gonna dive briefly into Beam and Apache and kind of open source software contributing overall, and then get into Beam specifics. So Beam belongs to the ASF. Hopefully many of you know this and what the Apache Software Foundation is. I forgot, and I'm not as organized as I would have liked to be, which would have been having some ICLAs printed out for you to even just sign to make that easier. We could probably take care of that, but let's see if we remember. It's important to at least eventually address that once you make really substantive contributions. So we'll get to that. Also, don't freak out. All the slides are going to be available later, are on GitHub. And Thomas. Yeah. So for those watching at home or in the office, to summarize was, again, everybody's welcome to contribute. The ICLA is very important for very substantive contributions, the sort of thing, at least, that will be easy to do, say documentation, etc. Go ahead and do it. Don't worry about your ICLA. It can also be filed online. So worry about that, and people will probably hassle you, if not at pull request time, once you've done something very substantive. So again, just contribute, and people will guide you, is the main thing here. Okay, yeah. I'm going to walk you through a bunch of slides, hopefully not read too much of them for you. So what is Beam? You guys are here at Beam Summit. Supposedly a unified programming model for both batch and streaming data processing, which it's largely doing even these days, across a bunch of runners and a bunch of IOs, etc. The history of the project walks us through, the old, is this, oh nice, it is pointing, cool. Data flow as the original model, running then on Spark and Flink, Thomas's Apex. We added Python as an SDK, and some of these other, runners along the way. Not to diminish them, I'm just trying to not read slides. An alternate timeline, I guess, either kind of makes sense on the history of this project. I just put on here, all sorts of exciting stuff to come in the future also. And, here we are at the second European Beam Summit. And for those not aware, we will have a Beam Summit at Apache Con in September in Vegas. So you'll, by the end of this, you'll also know all of the outlets where you'll get information about that along the way. Took this slide from a while ago. It's still recent, so seemed good enough. A decent sized base of 20 PMC members, currently about 50 committers, 400 contributors, a bunch of lines of code, pull requests, and Jira. The organizational chart of Beam, we have users, anybody using the software, naturally people that want to then contribute in some way. Eventually, having made various contributions to the community, you can get elected to become a committer and then those most trusted committers may eventually become PMC members. Currently, the chair of that is Kenneth Knowles, who then prepares the reports and is the one most responsible for dealing with the Apache Foundation overall. Okay, so, you guys here in the room and those watching at home potentially love Beam, but how are you going to get involved? So I even want to invite, especially those with laptops right now, are you guys on the mailing list? And if not, sign up. There's the user one for user issues. Hey, I have this question, and the sort of development issues. Subscribe to the dev list. There's others, but we're not gonna worry about that. And I can point you to the Slack channel, which is the Apache Software Foundation's Slack, whatever it is, organization, and then there's a bunch of different Beam channels within. So also make sure, I should have had a link on here, but make sure to get set up with that. Cool, looks like you guys are already on the dev list, and if not, do so quick, because that's going to actually be important here in another step or two. Cool. Okay, write the mailing list with questions, but kind of know how to do it. I personally spent a bunch of time having subscribed to the mailing list and just seeing the way people communicate, right, before overly getting involved. That's not meant to discourage immediate things, but there's community kind of standards, the way people do things. Sometimes people are calling for a vote, want things discussed, etc., and those are useful to put in, say, the subject of the message. Also, put a little bit of thought into how you write things, and you're likely to get better responses. Again, ask whatever, but the clearer you can do stuff, the more likely you are to get some help. We just saw a great presentation from Azamel and Riona. Contributions can be anything, not just code. So Jira is a place for lots of issues to be tracked, and we'll walk through that in a second, getting set up. But I meant to have this slide first. We'll want to get you guys set up with a Jira username, and then for those of you that might have Jira ASF credentials, please write dev@beam.apache.org and ask for contributor permissions. Either do so now if you're set up in ASF Jira, and if not, we'll take care of that in a moment, since that slide should have been here before. Thomas. And here is a example that's linked from the slides right here on, hey, here I am, I'm from, say, a company, I'm interested in these things, and I want to assign some things for me. So ideally, everybody here and at home is going to do that, and then we'll get you set up even at the moment. And for those, again, at home, it'll be less immediate, but not too long before that works out. There's this great link for a beginning working with Jira. I put just a couple highlights of, hey, it's important to know what priority things are, right? Is it trivial? Is it like super critical or blocking things? How quickly does something need to get addressed? Many of you are probably used to Jira and these sorts of things, but if not, a very extensive guide on how this works. We also have a, what various other tags mean. Thankfully, this sort of bit is well documented, although there are many needs for additional documentation, as we've heard earlier, and the GitHub for this specific presentation points to the talk that explains that. A quick overview of components. There's the portability API, which is making great progress. We have the various SDKs, currently primarily Java and Python, with Go also being supported. Robert gave a fantastic talk at the last Beam Summit in London on how to write your own SDK in another language if you are crazy ambitious. Consider that. We're not gonna dig into those specifics at the moment. We also have the Beam SQL and a bunch of other bits. All these links are going to work from the presentation. Yeah, this isn't the best picture. I was thinking roadmap. Anyways, there's, I don't know. I like Lombard Street. So you can see this link on kind of where things are going, and keep in mind, we're working on progress, not always the most efficient or immediate path. So, but we'll get there. Bug reports are cool, right? As even a user, it's valuable to share where you're having issues so that those developing know where there's problems and can overcome it. So, others like you may not have to face the issue. So, again, uploading issues to Jira is super valuable. Wait, here, let's go back if you're snapping a pic there. Okay. Code reviews. So we follow review then commit. So making sure things aren't committed before they are reviewed. So there is a nice blog. Again, I'm not going to pull it up this moment, that we pull from something Ken wrote. We're going to go through ideally everybody can even get in a pull request today, but we follow ideally some practices. You'll go back and forth potentially to squash a bunch of your commits so that they're meaningful, etc. Guidelines on what to do with test failures. Again, I don't need to, I think, get super into all of these specifics. They're here on the slides, and as you try to contribute something, the community is very welcoming and instructive and very much values contributions, so you'll be guided along the way. I think the whole point would be just try, do, etc., and don't be scared. It's not that crazy, and people again will guide you. Important thing, submit your pull request. It will eventually get reviewed by somebody. If you know people that work in a specific area, tag them so that they're more alerted to it. Hopefully then somebody actually says it looks good. If not, figure out what you need to do. For instance, squash your commits or whatever else, and then eventually it can get merged. Okay, testing's super important for code contributions. Make sure tests pass, as well as write tests for things. Technical design documents are all over the place. If you want to contribute, something that you want feedback on, follow the conventions, either, for small things, just have it discussed with the community, and if not, throw a doc together on what you're doing. Again, this is all about the Beam community overall. We, together with lots of input from everybody, are gonna hopefully do something great, and naturally lots of people know various things that individuals don't, so get feedback along the way. Keep in mind dev user mailing lists are public, so in case don't disclose private things there if it's going to get you in trouble. Ultimately, that's your responsibility to be aware of. I'm not aware of any major issues or concerns, but again, something to be aware of. Lots of also links here on the slide. Thank you. I spruced up this deck a little bit, but Azamel originally put it together, and Pablo also made some things. Again, make some write us on dev and user lists. I think you guys have subscribed already to these lists, so we're gonna make sure you guys have GitHub set up, hopefully, get Git installed, get you on Jira, and let's see here. The other bit is, okay, so we have github.com Beam Summit is the organization for this here Beam Summit, and hopefully those going forward. For those that missed the intro workshop yesterday, we have some of the materials. I'm going to work on getting the other slides in here as well, and then we have the contributing to Beam workshop. That's kind of why I glossed through these slides, because they're here. There's a lot of information on them and links. So you can go through the PDF here and get any of the links that we're linked to, as well as then we have surfaced a bunch of possible issues to look at. For instance, actually this is useful here. Here is the Apache Beam Jira. I will log in for the sake. For those of you getting started, it would be wise to look for, say, beginning, starter, easy fix spelled differently, or newbie issues. For instance, in here we have the looking for most recently updated, for instance, and other ways of prioritizing. You could search in any number of ways, but naturally these sorts of labels are valuable, or actually, come to think of it, I think I made this one as a bit.ly that even wanting to ensure we, did I not? Documentation. Let's not forget that documentation is also quite valuable. Again, I'm going to repeat, especially if you're watching this on video, check out the other video on really the value of documentation. It really helps the community. So find some issues here in Jira, and then get to contributing. I guess any questions at a high level now, and then otherwise I'm going to stop from a lecture guiding at the moment, and then gonna just encourage we work together on getting you guys all the way through this process. Cool. All right, then everybody at home, enjoy figuring this out online. Write the list. We're helpful. We have, for those in the front row here, we have Max, Thomas, Matthias, and Robert here, experienced Beam community members to help you out. Cool. Thanks, everybody.
I work at Shopify, working on merchant reporting.
We don't.
We have never really found a good solution for event time processing and incremental processing, and we're here kind of trying to scope things out. We've used Beam for one specific thing quietly over the last few years, but most Shopify doesn't know that. I guess I just find that this kind of method of just going through the code base with other people is a really good way of learning. And obviously, leads into them being in the future.
I'm for turnout. I work as a data scientist in manufacturing. So metal cutting and mining. I've done some really small contributions to Beam before. It's mostly out of interest myself. We don't use it that much, but forced to leave one project. Mostly Python. Okay, that's the Python. Python SDK, not that good Java.
For a specific organization.
An organization. So let me. ASF, Jira, sign up. Let me log out. I think anybody can just create one though.
I just created one in the Apache.
Okay, perfect. So, and you're on the dev list?
Yeah.
So please send a message to dev@ following that kind of convention, and one of these gentlemen in the back row here will get you set up. You found sign up for Jira pretty straightforward?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd say everybody sign up for Jira. Let us know if you have issues. And I probably don't need this microphone on anymore. No, that's a very important. No, but I think we're going to be interactive, although I'm even questioning as we go through this, so maybe during a break or near the end of the session, I think there's other bits that I should have been better prepared in my presentation to include that maybe I'm going to ask you to record to add to the video for those that might watch this later. Mm-hmm. I just realized it'd be good for those at home to demo this, since they won't get the hands-on attention that you guys will. So you guys will also be able to see really quick. I'm gonna try to not mess up a live, pull request here. Okay, so for those at home watching, I'm going to try to walk through a live pull request. So as we mentioned, we really are going to search through our, say, list of issues on Jira to find what we want. Looking, for instance, at these new beginner starter tags, for instance. I noticed that we have this in-person page that has a misspelling. So I actually think I wrote that page and misspelled this, so I'm going to go ahead and correct it live. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay. So no. Yeah, maybe that headset would be useful to talk to rather than this. Psst. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah. I guess we can't hurt, but yeah. But yeah, it's hard to type and hold. Okay, cool. Oh, okay, awesome. All right, so we have a issue with, say, a misspelling, for instance, in documentation. Naturally, this could be actual code, whatever sort of issue. So let us then go figure this out, but ultimately all of this comes down to having the Git repo and the code base, right? So I'm, say, on my desktop now, although I should potentially do this in, my IDE of choice, say IntelliJ. There's also really good IntelliJ Beam. Let's see. Yep. So on that wiki that I linked to before, there's very good instructions for using the IntelliJ IDE with Beam. I'm not going to walk through that at the moment. But be aware that this is a thing, and getting it right for development can be a little tricky. So absolutely check out this Confluence guide here. So anyways, I'm going to just clone this repository, which is taking its time. Cool. And actually, come to think of it, I don't want to clone the repository. I want to fork it. So let's profile. Let's just delete it because that'll be easier. Okay, so I should work with it on my own repository. So where is Apache Beam GitHub? So we're going to fork it. And I'm going to now have a local fork. Cool. So this now should be... did we? Come on. No. Okay, so we're forking it into my personal repository. That's where I'm going to make the changes locally. I will push it back into my GitHub account and then create a pull request from that into the Apache Beam master. So now we have cloned it locally, or into my account. From there, I want to pull it to my desktop at the moment. Git clone. Okay, so this will take a second. That's fine. This will take many seconds. So, since I think I messed this one up, I'm going to go ahead and use Jira to assign myself this issue. That way, the community should otherwise know I'm the one working on this. I don't think we have a large issue of people self-assigning issues and then dropping it. I'm actually very curious the extent, how often does that happen, and do we track that at all? Robert? So for instance, I just self-assigned myself this issue. What happens if I self-assign it, but I don't actually address it? Do we have a mechanism in place to say, hey, this was self-assigned how long ago? And
we do have a culture of if someone self-assigned it has for times, and someone can steal it. So what would happen is you look, if you see an issue where there's already somebody assigned, you would check how long is that assigned for any activity.
Mm-hmm.
If not, ask on the issue itself, hey, is still working on it? And then if there's no reply, then you can take it.
And the method for asking would be done on dev mailing list, on Jira?
On the ticket,
Okay.
the common fields, and then
So for those following, also, say I have an issue that I really need a feature, or I want something to have been done, someone else has assigned it. I guess the thought is they've picked it up, hopefully they're addressing it, but put in a comment here in Jira that, hey, is this getting worked on or not? And if there's no response, then feel free to take it over.
Just a question on comments in general. Comments here on Jira, is that used for discussion as well? Is that only the mailing list that used that? I mean, if you have questions about, okay, I can't really figure out how I should do this, should you use the mailing list or you should use comments here?
I think it really depends, and I mean, most of the time I'd say the mailing list is the source of truth where work happens, etc., and is a lot easier for anybody to find and is a lot more searchable, right? So my personal thought is do as much there as is reasonable. But naturally, I assume comments would be very appropriate for a very targeted thing related exactly to that issue. But
yeah, I would say like comments are for things. If someone is curious about that ticket, you have that page. It's more like a status. So are you working on this? Like, what's the ETA? Like, that would be like, someone goes to this ticket, they want to know that. But like, if you have some technical discussion, that's better now. And then also GitHub, what's your complaint or what's discussion pack?
So you search for a ticket. I'm trying to find this type of ticket.
Yeah.
okay, so question just came in: how to search for a ticket?
In a Jira, like JQL thing where you just type can you try to find your ticket there?
So this, for instance, so how would I find this ticket, for instance? I would, if I knew I uploaded it, I would look for things tagged with me. Otherwise, I would hope that whoever else did it, say I'm very interested in an issue, like then I would do a search for something. Azamel, you just stood up. Is this?
Looking whether it has labels. For example, you can find issues like labels.
Yeah, I think these amazingly, Rihanna just uploaded a bunch of amazing, easy issues for us to work through, where we may have skipped the usual labeling process, but they are labeled in the sense that we have surfaced them in the GitHub repository. Oh, perfect. I don't actually see that, but I believe that happened, right?
Maybe I missed that one.
No. Oh, you did. See, 36 minutes ago. That wasn't meant to be blamey, right? So you can find issues through the labels as discussed. Okay, so we also now have, we've cloned the repository. Let's see, what am I doing? The issue that I want is, okay, in community, in person, under meetups. Let's fix a typo. So, CD website, CD. I'm trying to remember the structure. Open. Beam. Let's just do all of this. Website, source. Do we have in person? Community, in person. Okay, meetups, occasionally. There we go. So we've edited the website here. Get status. So we're gonna add source community in person MD. Let's not add everything. It's easier to just add the individual file for nicer commits and commit messages. Git commit m. Fix typo. Git push origin master. Okay, so that then pushed everything to my repo here. Let's see, seconds ago, right? I fixed a typo that's in the repo, in the website folder, and then I am going to, you mean that there's not an issues tab on GitHub? That can be hidden. Versus not, right? So I, for instance, the contributing workshop yesterday, Pablo and I had been using issues to put things together, but then I decided all of that work needn't be public, so I hid that. I don't, for Beam, we don't use GitHub issues. Is that right? Okay, so yeah, Apache processes, I guess. I mean, they don't actually dictate that overly, but we just use their infrastructure as kind of recommended, right? But it's not we don't have to necessarily. Okay. Yeah. So I've made the code change. I want to put the get this pull request in, but I can do that in a second. Is there? that's a great thing. I believe it's linked in the slides, but let me even do that. Apache Beam contributing guide. So we have this handy dandy website, say beam.apache.org. Hopefully you guys are aware of it, or if you're paying enough attention, you have a sense of how to find such a thing. There is a contributing guide. I think I linked to it in the slides. I hope that I did. It also walks you through the sort of things that I'm attempting to live demo now, right? Get your accounts, connect with the community, set up your environment. Naturally, I'm just modifying a documentation, so I don't actually have to worry about building things, and then put in these sorts of things. Actually, that's a good point. I did not. I should have tagged the issue here, but maybe I can do that in the pull request. Let me finish this point since I'm off track. But yeah, the guide for how to do this is also on the website for one, and there's plenty of information here. Naturally, again, as you start to make progress contributing, mail the list, and people will help you through the process. Let me get back to, I want to put in a pull request. I'm going to the Apache bit. Okay, let's go to Bruce. So we'll go to my repository. We'll go to Beam. Let's go to Beam. Bruce Arctor Beam. Arctor Beam. I hope this is here. All right, good. It is. So I need to create a new pull request out of mine, which is going to demonstrate I fixed this typo. Change. Okay, cool. So I can do Beam. What was this issue number? 7601. Where is it? Beam 7601. Fixed typo. Let's even put a little bit of extra information in there. I think this is overkill for the process, but I'm gonna provide. Let me. All right, so I just put in the pull request. I'm committing into Apache master from my bit, at which point it looks at what happened and is running tests to make sure there's no issues. So we'll come back and check once all those tests have gone through to demonstrate that. Now let me get to your question of you're not finding the XML? You're not finding the issues? So, okay, yeah, we can walk through even that. Okay, so while the tests are running, we're gonna look at finding issues. Jira, we're logged in. Issues here. We're going to search for issues. All right, so I'm going to add some new filters. I want. Yes. Generally, I guess would be the question was when you submit a pull request, do you submit to master? And I would say like almost always, unless, I think you'd know when you wouldn't. Otherwise, go to master. Yeah, so we're going to go back and check right now on, it is still running the checks, but because, once this hopefully says all tests have passed, then we will check in. Oh, I would point out the one thing I did not do, which I probably should have, would have been tagging somebody specifically to look into the issue. I'm going to just say, hey, Max, merge this once all tests pass because we're right here, but that would be a way to get some more eyes on whatever. And that's more appropriate, especially working on, say, a given component where there's more established expertise, right, that kind of knows how that works and is going to then be familiar with, just because the test pass also does what you did, is it sensible, et cetera, and that way you get feedback and can learn along the way. Ideally, it's just LGTM and you're good to go, but.
Yeah, so if you click on the right on reviewers, it actually makes it.
It does not. I'm in so I may not have, that might require me to have contributor permission to the GitHub repo.
Okay.
That would be my guess on the ability to do that, although it could be something else. Max is perking up now. Assigning reviewers in GitHub.
You need to link your Apache account with your GitHub account.
Okay.
Because then you're part of the Apache organization at GitHub. So it's a bit unfortunate. You can't do it if you're not like a
Oh, but
Apache committer.
okay.
Oh, but you can just be Apache committer for anything and then any GitHub.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, how do you? Okay, yeah. So you just do R : and then just apps and get username. And what I do is I periodically I'll go to Git and I'll just search for my user in process.
Or so, for instance, right.
So you want to do R because otherwise it might be like, oh, someone thought I found this interesting, but doesn't want to review it.
Oh.
Can I review this?
Yeah. So maybe R max. What you're getting at is.
Right there, MXM. So we're saying to request review, we're going to type R capital or lowercase, or we are case insensitive? Okay, so the convention that we're recommending here is a R followed by a colon and a reviewer name. Again, don't worry if you don't have a reviewer in mind because you don't know these people. Just always tag Max and he'll get to it. Yeah. Okay. Well, so you should. I suspect Max is going to wait until the tests have passed, but I'm. That's up to him. Although I assume that's part of our process to not,
Yeah, I mean, I'll review sometimes when the test pass, but I won't merge usually. That's another point to be
Yep. Okay, so we're still going to wait on some tests to pass, but then there's still an outstanding question of searching issues, I believe. So.
I would also want to mention there is a culture of like if you don't get a review in a reasonable amount of time, feel free to ping. Just a lot of people are busy, but we're happy that you
So get,
Or if no one responds to that, then put a mailing list and say, here I have this feature, and anyone able to review that. Kind of like the culture of, take initiative to get your things reviewed. Makes things go a lot
yeah,
smoother. Don't be scared that like.
poke people a little bit. It may take some prodding to ensure you get attention, I think.
That's what we do to each other. We're all this.
So again, if you haven't tagged people in GitHub and nobody looks at your pull request within whatever we consider a reasonable amount of time, maybe some days or a week or whatever, definitely write mailing list and say this hasn't been looked at. And same with in your pull request itself, if you've gotten some feedback and then it's stalled, don't be scared to continue poking. Again, that's just a repeat of what was said, but for the sake of this microphone and the recording. Okay, so I'm going to look at... wait, we're good? Oh, you found another. Amazing. Okay, so wait, what did you do? So you think, no, I disagree. I like 2 spaces after a period. Wait, so why is or capital or like? Well, but it's the same, is it not? I mean, this is not good UI here. I can't. Oh, because it's because that's a code keyword. Yeah, okay. Okay, I mean, since this is my, I just really want this issue to be done. I'm gonna say that's fine. It is okay to, depends, inclination, have a discussion with your reviewer.
I think it's a good point because basically from my side, this is good to go. I mean, I don't care about the space, but I didn't explicitly write that. So, like, you might think, should it change it or not? So, maybe you should just, do you want to change it? I don't know. I guess I would have made a suggestion. Didn't want to change it.
So I think a good rule of thumb, if you look at conventional files, so if everything is double space after period, keep it consistent. If nothing is, say.
Let's see what the rest of the other active. Oh, we don't have. Oh, see, even in this file, then, right? Should I file a new issue for that space? So I actually now that I found evidence. Looking at convention, okay to stick with double space.
Very controversial.
No, I know, but I mean, I'm trying to demonstrate how, this is silly for, or maybe not, depending on who we're talking to, about singular double spaces, but it's not unheard of to have some back and forth with your reviewer on what's important. So that's actually a great point to have brought up. For the sake of things, I guess I'm just going to say, okay. And commit the suggestion, although now we're going to have...
Now, you could also leave it up to the reviewer, because so the reviewer can merge, so we can, you've made it clear, take it or leave it, make that call.
Oh, yeah. So I could just say, please, either. Right, so now it's up to, because I assume even the reviewer himself can then commit either change that he wants. Or should, and I guess that counts as me having two eyes on it because I just said either way is okay, so that therefore, and again, this is on the Beam policy of at least one committer plus somebody else should have looked at whatever we're talking about.
At least two.
Well, at least two people, one of which is a committer, right?
Author and a reviewer, one of which should be a committer. I guess not necessarily. There are cases where you have an author and then someone else reviews it, and then you bring a committer in to do another review, but usually it's not like as thorough as reviewing stuff.
Oh, can't wait. Well, but did it get merged? No. Or yeah, no, because I'm wondering if not, I should go. We should also fix the single space later on in that file. Then, right? Because we really shouldn't have just one single space in one sentence and.
As long as you're squashing this through the PR, you can make as many changes as you want.
Well, if you want now, you can push commit to like remove dot spaces.
Yeah.
Well, so if I commit this, that's one more, right? So we'll do that. It's still not approved. That's
Run those tests.
Yeah, and it's the test again.
and then we're gonna need to get pull origin master so that we'll have changed remotely. I'm pulling that up. We're gonna do source community and so we have more. Let's okay, so that is there. So we should have updated the single space per that one suggestion. And I'm going through this since this got brought up, but I don't actually know how to squash commit, so I think that's another good bit to include here, since that's important for contributing. Okay, any other double? Cool. So get add in person, get commit, more single spacing, get push origin master. So that's interesting. I'm curious about this. Hey, Robert. So I just put another commit, and this is just my unfamiliarity, to fix the other single space that we had. So really, a pull request is any of the changes that are, say, on my master to the. I was surprised to see that my committing to my branch automatically put that into this pull request.
So a pull request is a request to merge a branch.
Okay, so just, hey, everything that's on this branch. All right, that makes sense. Cool. So now I can say, hey, Max. Okay, cool. Fix typo. LXM. Fixed rest of page to make it consistent. Single spaces abound. Okay. Your move. Now then, is squash and commit something the reviewer is able to do, and or I guess at their discretion may say, I'm feeling lazy, you go ahead and squash those?
So typically, if some authors care about like commit history, and sometimes it's good to like, if you do a file move and then a bunch of edits to keep those separate. And then other times, it becomes this big mess. You have to fix a lint. Oh, I had to fix a unit test.
Yeah, here, let's get it on the record.
So I'd say generally we try to keep our commit history clean. So sometimes the person who authors it, has kind of a very curated history, in which case we want to do a merge. And merges are preferable because they play better with history and everything. But other times you have, something that goes back and forth and you have, I needed to fix a lint and then, I did, change some documentation, and it becomes this long, kind of history of irrelevant changes. And in that case, usually the reviewer should just merge, squash and merge. So it's up to whoever merges it to kind of, give the best history for what this PR is.
Perfect, and that's what Max has said that he will do here as soon as the...
Now, is the problem with the test runs? I just saw that, I approved the pull request and we have agreed to merge this, but the Jenkins test runs didn't seem to be triggering after you added the new commit, which probably just takes like a few minutes to
Oh yeah, that's true.
be resolved.
Yeah, because we should see that in here, right?
Yeah, no, it should where it says changes approved, there should be like some test runs listed, but I don't know why that is not working at the moment. That can happen. So we should always wait for the test to run and pass.
There's a good example. You can show how to manually run a test.
Oh, we're going to
Right.
show you how to manually run tests.
Right.
Which
Do you mean on Jenkins or on the local machine? Okay, so
So if you look at the, you know what? It looks like the tests are still running. So if you go up, they're still running.
oh yeah. So we see the green check mark there for the first commit, right? And then no, go to the green. Yeah, and if you hover over it, now on the check mark, because that's the checksum for the commit. If you click on it, I think, so you can see that passed. However, of course, because you added more commits, and you can see they're still running. I mean, we have to ensure those are also fine, and those just take some time.
If you see that website, and then it says run website pre-commit. So if you copy that code, run website pre-commit. So just the stuff in quotes.
go and put it in the
You make a comment with those contents.
right here.
That will trigger that test. Yeah, so what he's doing here is he's putting, so these tests all have little taglines with them. And so if you make a comment with this test, it will manually tell Jenkins, please rerun this test. So if you make this comment, Jenkins should start running this test for you.
Even in parallel to any other tests that are going on.
Historically, it did. I know there's been a long-standing request to maybe not do that, but I don't think that's ever been implemented.
So it will run in parallel, but the problem is GitHub only displays the newest run with a link there, but you can go into Jenkins and see all the test runs currently running.
So I'm going to click it because why not?
So maybe we should also go to Jenkins, if you open one of the. I think there's something broken there with the UI, but if you go details, you could, you can see the Jenkins UI, and if you actually, so each tag if you go like to click on the Jenkins task name,
That would be this.
yeah, so like now we are in the specific test run, and we can like view the console output, for example, to see what's going on there. And it actually, it passed build successfully, yeah, so everything is good. But we can also check out the other runs. So if you go back, if you click on this task name there, yeah, yeah, just click on this middle one, the red commit thing. So you can see in the left column, you can see that like all the test runs from all the PRs. So if in case you triggered multiple runs, you could check all the results there,
find
and
the other,
investigate errors or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
If your tests fail, you'll get this red dot. And this is useful to know, well, why did it fail? So you click on the dot and it'll take you to the
Oh,
Jenkins
to get
page.
into the logs.
Yeah, and so you can like
specifically
look
that
at the
are gonna tell you
logs,
why
look
it
at, you
failed.
know, for unit tests, it gives you nice charts, like which unit test failed, all that kind of good stuff.
Okay, so 7601. I don't see it. Oh, this is pull request history, not Beam ticket. No, oh, yeah. Beam. Can I search by the issue to find it? Let's find out. I cannot.
Oh, you want to?
Like, the commit of it should have the Beam issue number. So I'd like to search all of the build histories for tied to the commit. Yeah, I mean,
There's no integration with Jira and Jenkins.
sure.
It's just,
I mean, I just seen things with that tag in here, right? See, like in that, but that's just the Jenkins functionality not built yet or at all.
So Jenkins integrates with GitHub. So I just pulled this from the pull request title.
Yeah, I mean, I would just hope in build history, Jenkins I could search that message, right? But Jenkins is also open source. Feel free, whoever, to, okay, let's check out what's going on with this build still. Beam. Pull requests. We got a lot of open pull requests though. So the red X's mean checks did not pass. Yellow means they are still ongoing, maybe like this. And green means pass, but then some of these are just mean. That's surprising that we have so many open pull requests, though.
More closed than open. Yeah.
Okay.
So it can happen that if there's high load currently on Jenkins because everybody's running tests and you're running tests multiple times, which you did because you pushed multiple commits
Yeah.
after you opened the PR, that's fine, but it can take a while because the build queue just builds.
Yeah, because we only have so much Jenkins.
It appears to be not like super well.
So we just this is on Apache infrastructure and we just have a set number of machines allocated to us?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, actually, if you go back to the test results, I think all of those, I think it's actually less a problem with the GitHub UI at the moment.
Yeah, and it's that they've actually passed and GitHub hasn't acknowledged, like gotten the feedback from Jenkins yet?
No, actually there's a delay in triggering the test, yeah. So the GitHub has to send a call to Jenkins to tell Jenkins to start testing, and that doesn't appear to be happening because this update, this was my suggestion, this app is actually already finished. If you go there, in the UI it says like running, but if you go, we checked out the results, it said build successful, right? And then the next commit, which is the latest commit added, it hasn't like triggered any.
It did not trigger. There's
Yeah.
another pull request, but also doesn't trigger. So there's a problem with your changes.
Yeah. No, I think it's a problem with GitHub actually. It's not sending out
giving us
the.
500 errors earlier this morning.
Well, what is strange also is when you look at the build history of that job, the last one that is showing is June 15.
Oh.
The website.
Yeah.
So be prepared for.
If this change only like concerns the website, I mean, we could run those tests that are meant to be run manually, and then we would be responsible in case we broke anything in the
Yeah, to roll back, for
But
instance.
that's not a like committers can decide to do that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this in person is a markdown file also
Right.
that's only been changed, so
Right,
it's
but we can always merge this, right? It's not super
sure,
critical.
but we can, yeah, whatever we like to do, right? Did we? There was open questions on searching for issues with tags. Has that been resolved? Okay. Was that easy enough to figure out, or do you think that's something I should try to walk through here for those watching at home? Okay. Okay. I think we've debugged and dug into a whole lot more than I even thought about preparing, so that's pretty good. Anything else we think we should get on?
Let's say tomorrow something creates a new feature, and we'll just start testing.
Here, let's give you a microphone. Where's?
Okay, let's say we create a new feature, we did some coding, blah, blah, blah. It gets, all tests are green, everything's passing, but are there some kind of performance tests? Like, I don't know, I introduce something that's passing, but it's really slow, and it will decrease the performance of Beam IO for something, or are they some kind of performance tests?
I dare suggest that if it's new and doesn't exist and doesn't mess with anything else, then there's a question of whether poor performance is acceptable. But I should let the experts answer rather than.
Yeah, so usually, I mean, between the author and reviewer, there should be some, if there's a concern that it impacts performance, sometimes I'll look at a change and be like, have you run any benchmarks on this? We do have a bunch of benchmarking suites that you can run manually that are also run periodically in post-commit. But, if a change looks like it might be touching sensitive code, then hopefully the reviewer knows enough to say, can you manually run these benchmarks? And, do A/B testing there. And then we also run these periodically, and we'll notice, it's a lot harder to notice performance regressions after the fact, especially because they're not run on every commit, because they're performance tests, and there's a lot of noise. But yeah, performance is something, of course, we're sensitive to.
What kind of tools?
Yeah, so there's Gradle tasks that basically the main thing we look at is end time of running, a suite of pipelines. And then I know in Python and I think in Java there's also micro benchmarks for some things like encoding and stuff like that. But those are just run, it's like basically you run it in the master and you run it with your PR, and then you say, okay, these numbers are pretty much the same, or, oh, look, that was like 2 times worse. Maybe I'll look into what's really going on there.
Just to add, so maybe it makes sense to explain that there are like pre-commit and post-commit tests. So the ones in the PR, they're pre-commit, so they run on when you open the PR and have to check, to at least ensure like nothing is broken. But then, yeah, like Robert mentioned, we have those occasionally executing tests. Those are called post-commit tests, and they include, for example, like Nextmark as a benchmark to end-to-end tests. And we have like a metrics dashboard, which contains runtimes for each runner, for instance. And then we can see, usually we check before the release if there's some performance regression. And yeah, but yeah, like Robert said, it's when you see this in those tests, it's already kind of too late, and you have to fix it or revert something. So you just have to be careful up front with performance relevant code.
And hopefully the reviewer should, know whether or not there's special care should be taken, right?
Okay, updating the repo for this workshop, and then it seems like the general status that we've arrived at for this issue is some test things to be worked out. So, hopefully Jenkins generally works. If not, just make sure you're communicating with your reviewer on and patient with the Jenkins builds as needed. Naturally, just defer to their discretion, and then ideally things eventually look good and get merged. I think we've addressed a whole lot, and I'm also aware although this says it's coming up at 3 a.m., I think that's Pacific time, and we're a couple minutes away from lunch here. So we'll let us break with the, those feel free to check the GitHub issue and see if Max ever merges this website update. Anyways, cool. Thanks everyone. Hope this is useful for those watching, and for those here, let's help you work through all these steps if you haven't already gotten it addressed. So, thanks.